next panel. And the next panel is all about turning inwards. It's time to turn the spotlight inwards on you, on your voice, and your personal brand. How do you expand your reach and make a meaningful impact while staying true to yourself? We've talked a lot about authenticity and impact on the last few days. So we're going to get even more of a focused panel. So such a question is really at the heart of our next session, and it is titled The Art of Staying Authentic While Scaling Your Personal Brand. We're going to have some real stories as well as actionable strategies and insights that will help you navigate the tricky balance between ambition and authenticity. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call on stage our moderator. Please put your hands together in a massive round of applause for Rashad Kabara, founder and CEO of Cognexity AI. Joining Mr. Rashad, we have Patrick Lang, founder and CEO of Certainty Management. Please put your hands together. Joining them, please welcome Alan Leroy, founding and managing director of Venture and Philanthropy Blueprints. Joining them, we have Wala Nazim, GBS head of accounting at SLB. Thank you so much. And with that, I pass off the mic to you, Rashad.
Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. I feel like I have a great responsibility today because I have a panel of superstars with me. Each of them, they come with a interesting story, to say the least, from different walks of life. So I'm really excited to explore what authenticity means to them as they go on the journey of scaling their personal brand. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Rashad Kabara. I am the founder and CEO of Cognexity AI. At Cognexity, we build products which put people in the center of the AI revolution. So I come from working over 2 decades in the UK in the tech industry, and scaling personal brand, starting something afresh and trying to stay authentic is very close to home for me, because that's exactly what I'm going through right now. And I think the best thing I can think of is a quote that I heard recently is, if you know where you stand and what you stand for, then you'll become a magnet for opportunities. So I think staying true to yourself and authentic is something that is really important, especially that we are now living in an age where AI posts something for you, and then another AI will comment on that post, and then you've got an AI war happening. So authenticity becomes definitely the new currency. Without further ado, let me introduce to you my fellow panelists, the superstars of this discussion. On my left, I have Mr. Alain Leroy, and he gave me permission to say his name in French. He is a seasoned strategist, builder, and venture philanthropist, combining technology, capital, and social impact to help underrepresented founders scale mission-driven ventures. We also have Ms. Wala Nazim. She's the head of accounting at SLB. She is a finance leader and with 18 plus years in oil and gas, specializing in financial performance, cost optimization, and governance. And last but not least, we have Mr. Patrick Lang. He's the author, speaker, and CEO of Certainty Management with 40 years of sales and consulting experience, host of the Finding Certainty podcast, and former US Army counterintelligence agent focusing on profit consulting and social impact. I will let the panelists introduce themselves to you at length. We'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you so much. I love that intro. I need you to send me that that bio, that short bio. But this is amazing. It's truly an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this topic, which I rarely talk about, but is so fundamental. I come from New York, but my parents are actually from Haiti, which is why my name is completely French. And most people can't pronounce that. And, you know, on this topic, that's relevant, right? So because you have to really control the narrative, right? About you, about your name, about everything. And I started in technology. And I think it's rare, I think, for a technologist to also understand the power of branding. Usually those two things don't come together. So that's one of the things I think that's part of my superpower. But I love this stage and this opportunity. My focus today is Venture Philanthropy Blueprint, which is a book that's going to be coming out, which talks about how do we create businesses that make an impact in the world and do that in a way that's sustainable, where the entrepreneur could be successful, could make money, could make profit, and also uplift communities. You know, we don't have to choose, you could do both. So looking forward to this conversation today.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wala. I'm working for SLB as part of the finance team for almost 18 years in the oil and gas field. I had the opportunity to handle different business lines. I was responsible for driving the financial performance of the business, as well as the integrity and the governance over the financials. I had the opportunity as well to be part of the internal audit team in France for 2 years, doing field audits as well as governance projects as well. And I was the finance manager for Kuwait for 2.5 years. Was responsible for the integrity over the financial performance and talent development. 1 year ago, I moved to Malaysia. I'm taking a regional role as a head of accounting team, handling bigger scope and bigger team. And I'm very happy to be here today. And my mission today is to change the perception around finance people. Most of the time, it was interesting for me this morning when I was introducing myself to one of the audience as being part of the finance team, and she's part of the handling a non-profit organization. The comment was very surprising that she mentioned, "Oh, you guys, finance, you're dangerous." So I think this is something that today I wish I'll be able to change. Finance team are our great partners, and all what we need from you is to trust us. We're here to support, and this topic, authenticity, is very important because to get the trust of the people, you need to be authentic. You need to align your words and actions to your values.
Thank you very much, Wala.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being with us. My name is Patrick Lang. I own and have founded several companies, all with the theme of certainty. Our consulting firm is Certainty Management. Our technology company is Certainty Global. We have Certainty Holdings and Certainty Veterans, and we refer to it as the Certainty Collective. I almost called it JPL and Associates, and I'm really grateful I didn't years ago because it's been such a great theme to build on, this concept of certainty. This conversation that we'll have today is very in line with who we are and who we are seeking to be, and it is a proactive effort. It has to be a proactive effort. It isn't just something that happens by chance. Anyway, we're looking forward to this conversation. I'm honored to be a part of this. I think this is my third panel, and I have one more this afternoon. So I'm very honored to be here. This has been an extraordinary experience, and we'll get to know each other better in the next 40 minutes. So.
Okay, now I'm under pressure to make it the best panel you've been on. Let me then go straight to the questions. I'm going to start with you, Alain. You had quite an interesting background story, which I was very interested in learning about, and I think our audience would be interested in knowing a little bit more about. So to plug that into staying authentic while you're scaling your personal brand, can you tell me how have your West Indian upbringing and cancer journey shaped your personal brand?
Okay, wow. I think you said something there that you must have some good research people. The cancer journey, I probably have that in one place out of like 50 places, so you found that.
Thank you.
I don't really like broadcast that, but those actually are two fundamental components to who I am, my experience. So being raised by West Indian parents, my parents came from Haiti. They were born and raised and educated in Haiti, and then in the 1960s, they left Haiti. At that time, it was under a dictatorship, and they came to the United States chasing the American dream. They already knew each other in Haiti, and my father left first, which is usually how it happens. The man left, and then 5 years later, his future wife joined him in New York, and they got married, which was always the plan. And then they started a family in New York, and I'm one of three children that they had. I have two sisters, and we were raised in Queens, New York. Strong family values. I was fortunate to have both parents in the house. We ate dinner together as a family every night, even though my mother had a full-time job. She was a registered nurse. She would come home, prepare dinner for everyone, and we ate together. So very strong family values. So that vibrant West Indian household in Queens, New York, played a large role in shaping who I am. Also, not only that, but giving me a growth mindset. I think they came here chasing the American dream, so they always taught me you could be whatever you want, right? Work hard, study hard, pay attention to who your friends are around you. They had these qualities that were instilled in me. Now, that said, they didn't give me the blueprint for how to conquer corporate America. They didn't, I had to figure that out on my own. But then something happened to me in high school. I was always into sports. Even as a kid, I played baseball and then basketball. And then in high school, track is where I was like, whoa, like I ran track, I ran cross country. We were really good. We won city championships in New York City. And then out of nowhere, I was diagnosed with cancer. I mean, we just won the city championship. And then out of nowhere, boom. Within 60 days, I was getting treatment. At that time, I didn't know. I was so young. I didn't even realize how the seriousness of it. It was stage 3. And I didn't learn that until like 10 years later. I asked the doctors, how bad was it? So fortunately, I'm here. I'm healthy. I came through that. I'm a survivor, but part of that growth mindset, right? So when you conquer something like that, and I think everyone has challenges in their life. It may not be exactly what I just explained, but when you're able to look back at that and learn from that, then, well, is there anything I can't do moving forward? And so I think those are two things that are fundamental. So connecting with my cultural upbringing and understanding also the history of Haiti and its independence and everything that it did to reach where it's at today. And then that journey that I took personally. And then the third thing I'll just say is that, and then being in technology. So early in my life, I was introduced to computers. So I actually started programming computers in the 4th grade. Computers just came out, and my mother came home from a parent-teacher conference with a flyer and said, do you want to take this course? And I was in 4th grade. I was like, sure, 1983. So that also is what told me, whoa, this is amazing. Out of nothing, I can create and build something. Because that's when you create software, you start with nothing. You have to understand what you're trying to create and what problems you're trying to solve. And then you create a software program to do something. So that was the other thing, right? And I think all those things combined is what really played a big role in who I am today. And there's a lot more, but let me stop there.
Thank you so much for sharing this. We really appreciate it. And I think even though it does have a little bit of a deep personal twist to the question, I think it's completely relevant to shaping the person that you've become today. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that a little bit. I'd like to ask you a question. You work in oil and gas, right?
Yes.
That's a male-dominated industry. So let me ask you, how have you carved out your personal brand in such a male-dominated industry?
So just to clarify, because I'm office-based, so in the oil and gas industry, office-based is much better in terms of diversity. I think over the past couple of years, companies have been pushing to improve the diversity just to align with what we have on the community, to be a reflection of what we have. And this is where they try to have the right reflection there, because they do believe in the importance of having a diversified team. And on top of that, the current role for me, it's in the central hub. Central hub, you have even more flexibility. So I'm not experiencing really issues when it comes to the environment, or whether it's male or female dominated. As of now, it's I think overall we're doing great. However, I can share my perspective as at a point of time throughout the 18 years, yes, there was a time where I was the only female in the team, and it was a big team there. And what I can share, you don't really have to think about the gender. We have two important things. If you focus on, you can outperform and shine. Performance and relationship. So for the performance, this heavily relies on your capabilities and the efforts that you're going to put to do the job and the execution. On the relationship, here is the authenticity and trust. So for a finance person, it's very, very key and important to be a trustworthy. And to achieve that, you have to be yourself. So for me, authenticity, it means being able to be real and genuine, even when you're not comfortable. And most of the time, as a finance person, again, driving financial performance, as well as being responsible on the integrity of the financials, you will be in a position you will have to say no, you will have to correct people, you will have to discuss with them and spend time to explain to them why the business case that they have, it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. So if you manage to balance the performance and have the trust of people where they can come to consult you and where you can mitigate things earlier, you should be able to scale your brand, grow further. And it's very important for a finance person to always be align his actions with his values, where he can be more consistent. And this is how we build trust with people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you.
answer. And one of the things that I was looking to get out of this, maybe selfishly, is what does authenticity actually mean? I mean, it's a good fluffy word that we need to stay authentic, but I think that has completely different meanings depending on the context.
Yes.
And you just put your finger on two different meanings. You know, staying trustworthy. If you're a finance person, that's something to build your personal brand on. You know, obviously, this is something that if you keep true to staying trustworthy, then that's going to grow you, that's going to shine, or it will help you outshine other people around you.
Yeah, and sometimes people, they confuse the meaning of authenticity, that you in the workplace, authenticity means you're going to be yourself, true self, which means you're becoming too emotional sometimes.
Yes.
And this is not the case. Authenticity means you are real. You do what's right,
Yes.
not what's easy, right?
I think it's about knowing yourself, knowing your core values, and staying true to those values as well. Just stay aligned no matter what happens. And I think this would be a good North Star to have. Thank you. Patrick, I am interested in knowing, because you combine a military background with entrepreneurial spirit, and that's always an interesting mix. So I would love to know how those two backgrounds help you shape your personal brand, and also what do you do to stay authentic whilst you are building your brand?
You know, it's a great question. I think it's a good insight that how do you blend those two, right? Because my experience, I worked in counterintelligence and counterterrorism. I had to go through extensive training. I held a top secret security clearance for several years. And in a very real sense, when you're working in that realm, you are under a microscope all the time, right? They're watching you, they're making sure you're doing what you say you will, you're where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be. It's very I don't want to say constricting, but it's very serious, right? You have to toe that line. And I was very young. I joined the army when I was 17 years old. And so as a young man, kind of figuring out who I am and who I wanted to be, I had this experience that really forced me to grow and to expand and to question those, ask those questions, if you will, right? It was an extraordinary experience, and it did lead into the rest of my career. I studied English in college. I thought about being a lawyer. I was going to go to law school, but in the summers, I did summer sales jobs, selling everything from Cutco knives to cookware to yellow page advertising as a young buck.
What is that?
It's a dinosaur now, but I was doing it in the summers to pay for schooling, and I realized I was really good at it. I really enjoyed it, and I realized that maybe I didn't want to go to school for several more years just to stare at books all the time and be a lawyer. And I, as a result, have been in sales for 40 years. I decided I was making good money. I enjoyed it. I could see a career path, and there's enough flexibility in sales that you can work in several industries. So while I learned from my military experience several principles and rigor and discipline and some of these characteristics that I knew would benefit me, and they have, I took a route through sales that I think was more flexible, more fluid, and as a result, I've worked for several employers over the years. Now, I eventually started my company because you know how it is. We've all had employers where we like certain things about them and there's things we don't like. Doesn't matter. I don't care who it is. If you're married to someone, you like 10 things about them and there's 10 things you probably don't like about them. And if you switch them out for someone else, it's going to be the same thing. So ultimately, I decided, why don't we start our own company and keep the things we like and get rid of all the things we didn't like, whether it's prejudice or contention or foul language in sales meetings or whatever. We started Certainty, and again, as I said in my intro, I'm grateful we chose that word because it's been a great word and a great theme to really build around. As a veteran-owned company, as a collective, as we call ourselves, there's a lot of ramifications, a lot of layers there, but it was a great decision because it's something we've been able to build upon with our podcasts, with our radio show, with our books, and other things we're doing. This theme of certainty, for me, is very authentic to who I am and who I wanted to be, and I'm still working on it. So,
yeah, I really love that because a lot of companies. I'm a startup founder, so you spend a long time trying to find a name for your startup that's going to be impactful and it's going to relay your values. But you've gone for that's my value, like the name of the company. It's one of the values that we go by. So that's truly authentic. I think it stays within the theme of what we're talking about. So thank you. That's an amazing answer.
it was either that or big mouth, but we felt certainty was better. Right?
Maybe that's another venture for a later time. Alain, I'll continue with you, please. I want to know, how do you ensure that your company reflects your personal brand whilst you're scaling it? So all of us, we're trying to make our businesses grow. We are interested in scaling up, and maybe some of us are not so much from recent conversations I've had, but I think you would join me to say that we all want to scale, we all want to propagate. So how do you make sure that your company aligns with your personal brand as you scale it up?
Well, I mean, that's important. I think first it's what problems are you solving with your company? And that's usually connected to who you are, usually, which is connected to your purpose. Eventually it will be, but that sometimes it takes time for all those things to connect to each other. Everyone's on a journey, I think, in your life. But when you start to realize that you are on a journey and we're here for a purpose, I think it's important to try to connect these things together. So when I start to, like, if there's an email campaign or something, or I'm thinking about like a content strategy, for me, and this is not everybody necessarily, but I feel like the answer to everything is already out there. The answer is out there in the universe. And I want to always be truthful in what I'm saying, even if it's hard, even if it's a hard truth. Be truthful, because if you have to kind of create something that's not real, it takes much more energy to keep that up than it is to just be authentic. Like now, me being here, being able to say, look, I came up from a West Indian household. I grew up, I slept on a twin bed with my grandmother, and my sisters were on a bunk bed in the same room. And what I went through in high school, like now I could talk about that. It's just flowing through, my mouth, but it wasn't always like that for me, right? I had to really, and COVID actually played a big role in giving me the time to think back and study myself and understand, how did I get to where I am right now? The 25 years of being in the corporate world. So I think back to your question, I'm a technologist, right? So my superpower, my skill set is technology. And I was very good at that. I was, the best in what I did. And then I started out just focusing on that because I had jobs and I was working in consulting, and I was focused on just being the best at what I could do in that moment as a software engineer on the front lines of digital transformation since the internet came out. I was doing that. And then eventually I started to realize, wait a minute, my parents are from the Caribbean. And then I started to understand the power of now tapping into that. And that just continued to add layers and layers and layers. And now I'm sitting here, 30 years later, also as a father. So there's so many things that are layered onto my personal brand now. And I'm able to be on this stage. So how I connect that to my business is that I'm in the business of helping other entrepreneurs make money helping people. So all these things now are connected, right? That wasn't always the case for me, right? Initially, I was just, conquering the corporate world. And eventually all these things got connected. So I think that, that's what matters, is understanding kind of what problems do you want to solve and why are you the most qualified person to solve that? And I think if you're able to answer those two questions, they should connect together.
Do you find yourself, I'm just going to stay with you for one more moment. Do you find yourself maybe like coaching the people or the people you work with on, as you did yourself, kind of explore all angles of your background or upbringing or your story or where you come from? Like, do you find yourself telling them this is where you need to start to dig and find your authentic self and then grow your brand accordingly? So this is something that you're actively...
I usually start by asking, what problem are you trying to solve?
Right.
And then I peel that back to try to understand why are they trying to solve that problem. But first I try to understand the problem they're trying to solve. And then if there's some legs to that, then I try to get underneath, why are you trying to solve that problem? And it usually takes, the first answer is usually not what I really want. I want to get underneath, the pain and the suffering, because, you have to use your challenges as your motivation, because that's what's going to make you differentiate yourself from everyone else. So I start with the problem usually in my role, and then I peel that into personally, why are you trying to solve that? And then we work towards connecting these two things together to be a very powerful branding and outreach and marketing and communications around the business.
Thank you very much for this answer. I definitely echo with everything you said there. Patrick, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that if I can. I think it's easy to feel like, we've heard of imposter syndrome, right? We're going through trying to figure out who we are, trying to become that person and accomplish our goals, et cetera, et cetera. Not realizing that we all have our own superpowers, and they often do come from pain, from trials, from lack, poverty, or heartache, or whatever the case might be. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is thinking that we don't match up, or that we don't compare, that we are somehow lacking, when some of the most powerful leaders and influencers and executives in the world have taken their pain and heartache and trials and struggles and turned them into such a powerful sense of empathy, understanding, insight, and integrity. Talking about authenticity, right? They're not pretending to be something they're not. They're not trying to ignore it. They're not trying to overcome it even. They're embracing it and utilizing it. I think we all need to do more of that, right? Don't try to, don't, we do need to fake it till we make it a little bit. We do the best we can as we're making it up as we go along and learning and growing. But the sooner we can love ourselves and appreciate ourselves and look at ourselves and what we bring to the table as strengths, I think the better we can do. So,
Absolutely, and thank you for that addition. I think you and I were discussing this a little bit earlier. We were literally talking about imposter syndrome and how people don't necessarily embrace everything that has come in their journey, even though that could give them, as you said, Patrick, a superpower. I think we are the culmination of everything we've done in our life. And if you feel that you need to kind of show up a certain way, and that certain way doesn't necessarily encompass everything that has happened to you, you're not being truly authentic to the person you are, and that's gonna keep you a little bit in the shadow. And I think one of the most empowering things I've experienced is to just be okay with everything that has happened in my life, and not only that, kind of highlight it as part of the journey. You'd be amazed at how many people can relate to the message that you're trying to get across to the world, and that will only go to build your personal brand and make it stronger. So you don't have to try hard, you just need to stay authentic. And I think organically, that's going to grow your brand as well. So thank you for that addition. That's definitely on point.
Just to add to that, I think the other thing now, though, is yes, absolutely 100,000%. But then when you have to go out into the world and coordinate, this is where it gets a little weird or complicated or challenging, because when you come out of that cave of realizing who you are, your brand, your purpose, and then now you have to step out into the world. Now to achieve success, you need other people working with you. And we don't realize that the identity that you carry with you is either going to limit you, or it's going to give you, or it's going to strap a rocket to your back, right? So when you step out into the world, is how now your narrative around how you articulate that really matters. Because either you could isolate yourself, depending on how you're explaining who you are, or you could get people rallied around you. So this is where language and words and all that happens, but your identity really matters. So like, for example, in Venture Philanthropy Blueprint, we say socialpreneurs. Regardless of your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your country of origin, are you a socialpreneur? Right? So now everybody could see themselves in that. And then as a socialpreneur, are you a builder, backer, or a believer? So now I get you into a particular segment, right? So that is global. So it really, you have to think through how you're using your words and how your identity it carries across in various communities.
Thank you for that. Wala, I wanted to ask you, in your job, you have to do a lot of cost optimization.
Yes, to help you guys to have a good results, right?
So I think the interesting thing about that, there are two interesting things. First of all, you've been in corporate job for a long time. A lot of people here are either founders or whatever, directors or. So I'm really interested in your challenges within the corporate world. So as you do your cost optimization and you have to focus on that, you have to kind of like do that or continue that function. How can you combine that with making sure that you're bringing long-term value to what you're doing and the company and the people around you as well? And do you feel that this plugs into staying authentic as you're building your brand within the company?
Totally right. So the point is, again, it's here going to the second part of how you handle the communication with people and relationship. So it's very important. So throughout the business and driving financial performance is to communicate and to have a clear communication with the stakeholders and explaining the why we're doing it. It's for you need to get their buy-in, you need to get their support when they understand why we're doing it and how this is aligned with the long-term goals. Because sometimes, yes, we go a bit aggressive on the actions to optimize and improve the financials. And when we engage with the stakeholders and we listen to each other, you might be changing your plan, right? But most of the time, when you engage with them and explain to them the why, they will be the one going and executing and doing it. So having a clear communication with the stakeholders is very important. Understanding the value of why we're doing it and how this is going to be aligned with the long-term goals is another point. And me personally, what I used to do as a controller before or a finance manager, I don't really wait till we are in a position to make tough decisions. You have to be proactive. You have to always continue working on driving the financial performance and efficiency in a timely manner, because if you're reaching a point that the financial performance is dropping, the options will be limited. So it's better to be more proactive and work on the mindset for all the team to think and focus more on continuous improvement. Make it part of the culture. We always try to improve, try to be efficient, because once you reach the optimal level, I don't think there will be much that you can do after that. So if you're maintaining that level, I think you will not be in a difficult situation.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Patrick?
I have a question for you, Rashad.
Go.
Because I'd love to hear more about your story. How do you define authenticity, and how has it really defined your work or elevated your work? Because that's really what it does, right? It's an interesting dynamic, because being authentic is really being grounded in your principles. But by being authentic, being grounded, being steady in these eternal principles, I say they don't change. It doesn't matter what you do. It could be in oil and gas or advertising or energy, whatever. It elevates your work. It elevates the purpose of what you're doing. It elevates your results. I believe it does have almost a magnetic effect, a law of attraction effect that draws more of the same to you, right? But what's been your experience?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking me. Let me start with the beginning of my career journey. So when I was a young guy, moved from Lebanon. I'm originally from Lebanon. I moved to the UK when I was around 20-something years old. So I started my journey there, just like any other immigrant, trying to make it somehow. And I started the first job looking around for cues as to what is expected of me. So how am I expected to behave? How am I expected to say things? You want to fit in, you want to adapt, you want to be taken in as, one of the people who already kind of live there. And as I grew through my career, I started understanding that that's not the best thing to ask yourself, and that's not the best course of action. And the reason for that is you end up becoming a persona that somebody else has built for you, and nothing good comes out of that. So it becomes increasingly difficult to bring value to other people when you don't know yourself, just because you built an image that can thrive in a world that you think you needed to make, but it's not truly aligned with yourself. So just like Alain, when COVID hit, I think COVID did a lot of horrible things, but it really gave us that silver lining that all of us became gardeners, and we looked inwards and we started thinking about who we are and what we actually want to bring to the world. And that's the moment when I decided that, you know what, it's time to kind of stop trying to conform, and it's time to start really aligning my life with my values. And that kind of spun me off on a journey that has not been easy. I think it was harder than the journey of moving to the UK in the first place, but it's been incredibly rewarding. So I think, to go back to the question, going through the journey of trying to conform and then being completely true to myself, and I can see the effect of both, I would never go back to try to conform. I would never go back to try and listen to other voices telling me what I need to do. And I've tried to carry this on in my business. So when I started Cognexity AI, I wanted it to look as much as possible like me. And I deeply care for people, and I deeply care for helping people out. So I started a business around making sure that we keep people at the center of the AI revolution. So as AI grows, and as the big companies with big checks race towards artificial general intelligence, the artifact of that is that they're creating amazing tools for us. They're very empowering for our self-development. And in the company, we're trying to cultivate all of this and create tools to help empower people, get them out of their shells.
Thank you. Got to put him on the spot too, right? Great answer. Great answer.
Alain, you want to add to that? I think we
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
leave some time for the Q&A, but please feel free.
Real quick, just to add to that, I think also, but let's also be real that you are where you are, right? So I think that I wouldn't change anything in my background, because wisdom comes from experience, right? So even you, right? Even though I don't want to conform, but you had to come to that realization. So, coming in corporate, and I started in the corporate world, going back, would I do it differently? No, because that taught me the best practices, and it taught me what I didn't want to do, right? So, it's hard. Some people say, well, okay, how should I start? Start the way you think you need to start, right? And I think it's important for you to understand what your superpowers are, which is kind of different. It could be different from your, so as a software engineer, I had a particular set of skills. Maybe yours is marketing. Maybe yours is related to graphic design. Maybe yours is related to finance. Maybe yours is related to sales or relationships. Who are you naturally? What did you love to do when you were 2 years old? Ask your parents, what did I do when I was a kid? Just naturally, because that usually has a connection to your superpower. And then you take that into whatever walk of life you need to go into next.
Unless it was setting the house on fire, then don't dig into that.
Hopefully it's
Get it
positive.
sorted. Thank you so much for the answers. I think we've given, you've given some incredible insights into staying authentic. I think we need to open up the floor for some questions, because we've only got a few minutes left. Any questions, anyone? No? All right, then we do have time for your closing remarks.
I have another thought I'd like to share. One of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned was about being accountable. And I think it's an important element of this is that we are accountable to others. We are also accountable to ourselves. And ultimately, accountability is what I call living above the line. When you're below the line, you're putting yourself into a victim stance. There are different manifestations of that. You're pointing fingers, you're saying, I don't know what to do, it's not my job, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're accountable, you instead choose to say, what else can I do? Sometimes that's asking for help. That's not being a victim. It's collaborating. It's asking for mentorship and so forth. But you need to see the problem. You need to own it. And then you need to go to work on resolving it. And many times the best way to do that, the fastest way to do that is to have mentors or a team or surround yourself by people who've been there and done that. They can shorten the learning curve for you. They can help create shortcuts, right? And help you avoid the same pitfalls they make. That's what we're all trying to do, is help the next generation to do it faster and better, wiser. But remember that principle when it comes to authenticity, when it comes to success in business, to not be a victim, to keep asking, what else can I do? You want to read a great book about it? There's a book called The Oz Principle. You can find it on Amazon or wherever, but it talks about this topic and it's life-changing.
Thank you so much for this insight. I think we're running out of time, so did you want to say something, Wala?
No, just maybe one advice to, which
Yeah,
is
please do share. Please do share.
aligned with what Alan explained as well, is that from time to time, we have to take a step back and start thinking, what motivates me? What makes me happy? Think about what are my values, and then you need to align your actions to these values. And here where you're gonna be authentic and be genuine, and you will be able to connect with others. What I want to leave the team here with, because this is very relevant, I think, for everyone, that we always need to remember that leadership is not anymore about titles. It's very important to remember the values, trust, and it requires courage as well to be your true self.
That is a perfect segue for how I wanted to close the session, because I was going to say that if anyone is, you need to ask question. Right.
We don't have time for questions.
Yeah, hi. My name is Manish Dalawat from Shraddha Infosystems, Pune, India. I'm the founder and CEO of my company. So, Vala, I have a question for you. Well, it's always very difficult to convince a CFO for getting the marketing and sales budget sanctioned. And as marketing, we are aware what great we can do and how company can flourish. But we need to convince CFO also to sanction that budget. So as a CFO, how you see to this and what factors you keep in mind while taking a decision? And that's what I would like to have insight from your side.
I think whenever we discuss the budgeting, it's very important for all the stakeholders to come together and discuss. And you as well need to listen to the finance, see why a CFO or a controller, why he's pushing, for example, or trying to cut the budget and limit it, right? Because again, when we set the plan, we have a lot of consideration there. We have a lot of estimates, certain expectation for the growth that might happen and might not happen. And we always try to maintain the profitability as much as we can, because all of the companies, they are as well targeting profits, trying to achieve efficiencies. There are a lot of challenges all the time. Cost is increasing. There are other projects. So maybe from your point of view, you're trying to ask for a certain budget, but you have other functions as well, right? You have supply chain that's are there. You have HR. So there are a lot of considerations part of the business plan when we set the target. So it's very important that we come together and we explain. And again, you try, when you discuss with finance, you try to show them the value. Why, from your point of view, this is what you want to achieve.
So my question is, Vala, cutting down on budget is very easy. And giving reason that because of these factors, I'm not able to give you budget. My question is, Vala, if the budget need to be increased and
you want to increase the budget during the year.
Yeah, and then which are the factors as a CFO you see to it to get that sanction? So
is your budget is going to come up with additional revenue?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So what are the factors you see to it, or you just listen to CEO and increase the budget?
No, we don't do that for sure.
Okay.
If you have pipeline, an opportunity where we need to increase the budget and it's going to come up with additional revenue and a good fall through, we consider it for sure.
So we need to be ready with the pipeline and the numbers.
Yes.
Got Thank you very much. Thanks for the insight.
I think we might have time for a very quick question if somebody has any other question. Otherwise, we'll continue with the closing remarks. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank all three of you. You've given some incredible insights to me personally, but I'm sure to the audience as well. I think just to kind of summarize everything we said, we talked about staying true to your true self. And what that means, don't be afraid to bring your true self out to the world. Maybe, and just be careful about how you narrate the story of certain things that have happened in your life. But there's nothing out there to hide, because if you do hide bits of yourself, then that's going to be reflected in everything you do, and that's including your business. So if you want to know how to stay authentic when you're scaling your personal brand, it's quite straightforward. Go back to the basics. Stay true to your core values. Ask the whys. Keep digging deeper. Know exactly what you stand for and why you're doing what you're doing today. And then just when you extract those core values, make sure that you have some sort of system that keeps you accountable to staying on those values and not deviating. A lot of people are good at finding out their values and trying to stay true to them, but then other distractions come about. Maybe they drag you in a different business direction, or you get a lucrative offer, something else. But always write your values down, try to stay true to them. And yeah, it's just the foundational way of being a truly trustworthy human being. So with that, I thank you all for listening, and I thank my fellow panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.